Welcome to Did You Know? Did you know about Melkhoutfontein? And did you know what regenerative tourism is? Well, some months ago, a New York Times headline read like this: "Move over sustainable travel, regenerative travel has arrived." And that made me think, if ever there was a time that we need regeneration in this industry, it is now. Again, quoting the New York Times article, can a post-vaccine return to travel be smarter and greener than it was before March 2020? I'm one of them that bets on this, because I know it can work if done like the project we will be introducing today. But what is regeneration and what does it mean in tourism? Is it a realistic idea? Let's first look at the stages or catchwords, if you want, we've heard and been through in tourism development. We've had ecotourism, we've had sustainable tourism, and we've had responsible tourism, all categories or slogans that are still valid. But what is at the bottom of all of them? There are three pillars on which any sustainable development stands: environmental integrity, economic efficiency, and social justice. And all are complicated, meaty, meaningful concepts. And they have to be in balance. They have to be given equal importance, in other words. Currently, the new credo all over the globe is we need to be better, greener, and more inclusive in tourism. And there are 5 implementation principles for the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement: leave no one behind, accountability, integrated approach, shared responsibility, and universality. Noble principles indeed, but are they implementable here for us in South Africa? Well, I'm so blessed that I know that there is at least one product that has been living, breathing, and practicing all of this. It is the Dreamcatcher Project, established by Anthea Rossouw about 25, 30 years ago. And I can vouch for this 100%. So I have had the privilege to be a tiny part of it. But fortunately, I'm not the only one who sees the value of what Anthea has been doing. I've seen some award winners, and did you know? But here is another one. Anthea Rossouw has been awarded a number of prestigious international awards for her work. Anthea, it is so great to have you here with us on Did You Know? South Africans have to know about Melkhoutfontein. We need to see what is right under our noses and how amazing these regenerative principles can work. And you are the main dream catcher, and I love the story behind it. Tell us about how it actually started.
Thank you, Joleen. It's wonderful to join you today. Well, I'll fall right in. Dreamcatcher was actually translated to Dreamcatcher. Actually, I was called Die Droomvanger, which is in Afrikaans, the Dreamcatcher. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Northern American and Canadian Inuits that use dream catchers as part of their lifestyle, and that is great significance to them. He called me Die Droomvanger because, and he'd never heard about the dream catchers in the Northern Hemisphere, simply because there were no televisions and he didn't have a telephone or a cell phone. So I met Moses really by divine destiny. I call it destiny because from the moment I met Moses Kleinhans in Melkhoutfontein in Stilbaai, actually my whole life changed. The story is actually like this. My husband was a general practitioner dentist, and I went to the post office to collect a parcel for him. And on this parcel, a counter, leaning was a gentleman, and I could see, having worked for a long time in my husband's surgery and also as a first aider, I saw that he was in trouble. He had breathing problems. So he was leaning on the counter trying to say something, but he couldn't get a word out. So I said to him, "What would you like to say to the lady?" So he says, we just wanted to say, when is the next date for me to come to collect my pension? So I said, "Well, how are you feeling? Because I see you've got a great big piece of towel around your mouth. What is wrong? Have you got toothache? So he said he hadn't slept for 2 weeks. He's got terrible pain. It's going right into his throat and into his head. So I said, you know what? Come, let me take you to the surgery to help you. And with him was a gentleman. Also, his name was Willem Darries. They went to the post office together. And he said, can I come? I said, yes, please come along. And when we got to the vehicle, my little dog was sitting on the back seat. I said to Bonnie, Bonnie, get back into the window. And he got in. And I said to Moses, let me help you to get into the passenger seat. And he stood back and he looked at Willem. And Willem looked at him. So he said to me, but we sit in the back, lady. The dog sits in the front seat. It was such a profound statement to me that I nearly burst into tears. Having been raised in a multicultural, loving environment at home, I could speak Xhosa before I could speak Afrikaans. In the Eastern Cape and then migrating to the Western Cape, I grew up interculturally. And I had no idea, really, what life was before that. So when we moved to the Western Cape, that was a different thing altogether. There was really harsh days in terms of a lack of community cohesion. So I said, no, come on, get in and I'll take you to the surgery. There he was treated. He got an injection because he had very high bacteriological infection and tablets. And my husband said, the dentist said, listen, I can't work on your teeth because that's directly linked to your heart. You have a condition and you can't have that extracted, but here's the antibiotic, which I've just injected, and my wife will take you back home. So when we got to the car, I went to the back seat again, and Willem was standing around very uncomfortable with his hat in his hand. So he said, madam, I said, no, Anthea, what did you want to say to me? He said to me, can we rather both get in the back seat because we feel uncomfortable sitting next to you, driving through Stilbaai. Another profound statement. I took Willem home first, and then I dropped Moses off. And I took him inside into his little house. And before he could have his tablets, I asked if he had something to eat. So in a packet, he had some bread. I cut him a piece of bread, and I made him a cup of tea on the old, what they used to call a primus. My grandmother had taught me that, so I could do it. And I made him a cup of tea, and I gave him the tea, and then I sat with him until he had had his bread and his tea, and I gave him the tablets. And I left, and I said, I will be back again to come and see how you are doing. I went back once or twice again, twice actually. He was getting on fine. I said, I'll come and fetch you one day when your tooth can be taken out. I did that. I took him back to the surgery a fortnight later. And when he was done, I said, let me take you home. And when I was nearly home with him, driving the 7 kilometers from Stilbaai to the community of Melkhoutfontein, where the community had been settled. And he said, please don't go in. I want to show you something. And he took me on a tour into Melkhoutfontein. And the hardship was something profound. He stopped at various homes, and in spite of the extreme conditions of hardship, he called some people, and they came, and they were so happy to see me. And I gave them my hand, and they first didn't know if they should take it, and they did. And I said, nice to meet you, and they were very happy. And then Willem said again, this is our patriarch. So he's bringing you into the community, into our culture, and we're very honored to see you. So I said, no, I'm very honored to meet you. And I went back, took him back home, and then, long story short, about a month later, I get this telephone call. And those days, the telephone, they used to phone from the payphone, and it went beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. And he said, it's Willem, it's Willem. No, he said, I'm sorry, it's not Willem, he's standing next to me. It's He said, he said, no, it's not Willem. He said, I'm the one that you took. Have you forgotten about me? I said, no, I will not never forget about you, Moses. He said, oh, you do remember my name. He said, I haven't slept since you last dropped me properly one night. When I look through the window and I see the Southern Cross, I know that you are our Dreamcatcher. Ek weet, jy is ons droomvanger.
Wow.
And
goosebumps all over.
it was an incredible moment for me. And I said, so what can I do for you that you're honoring me like this? He says, you know what? I'm the sole survivor of 2 shipwrecks. Mm-hmm. And I in church on Sunday, he says, I said thank you to God because I've been saved to meet you. That's why I was the only one that survived the 2nd shipwreck. We were fishermen. He said, and I know why I've been saved, because you must come and help us. He said, somebody gave me part of a newspaper of Stilbynis. Mm-hmm. And there were you had actually helped the Jagersbos Center, community center for all the white people in Stilby. He says, and then you were also at the tourism bureau that you set up. He says, and I see so many tourists that come in every year that come and buy the fish at the harbor. He said, is there not something that you can do to help my people before I die? He says, because, we go for some jobs, sometimes permanent, mostly semi-permanent and seasonal, and we are servants. We don't have a service. We don't have enterprise. We are dependent on people coming here to fetch us at the road. Mostly they don't even come into the community. Please, can you make our community something to be proud of, that people can come here? And that was a defining moment. And I decided, no, I can't find a home really in tourism, because I was looking at tourism from a completely abnormal way. I was looking at the full South African experience with all our beautiful cultures and more geographically spread around the country, and not just these tourism hotspots. So I said, well, give it a go, but you have to stand right next to me, because I can't just barge in there in the community and then it will not be fitting. I can't just come and tell you what to do. I will hear what you have to offer and what we can do. And so he said, well, and he was a very wise man. He said to me, what is your strategy? I said, you know what is my strategy? I'm going to take everything that is a barrier to your development for your future and turn that barrier into an opportunity.
Well, there you go. And I mean, that was your first taste of reality, the fact that there is not a good representation in tourism, which doesn't lead to transformation, because transformation needs to have this taste of reality. What is really going on, and what do our people really need to actually get tourism as a developing agent? So that was your first one. And then you went on to develop this thing so that we could come to your second statement that you always make. Go truly local.
Yes, because that was my taste of reality. And then to get a further taste of reality, I did a lot of research in the community. What were the barriers? Pardon me. What were the barriers? Where was the opportunities? What is holding this community back? Because I also had multitudes of meetings in the church, and I was so honored they would put me up on the pulpit of the church, the different church denominations, and say, well, there is this white-haired woman. She's the wife of that man that pulls our teeth all for free. and yes, and that was my introduction. But she's going to give it a go to try and help us to make things better. And so, yes, on that pulpit, I got lots of tastes of reality, of needs, of barriers. I put that all to book, and I worked out a plan, and I spent the next many years working with the community to normalize the feeling that visitors actually come into the community. There was a lack of confidence. They had never done this before. As I said, they were always just servants and never a service. And so during that time, I thought, let me try and see what's out there in other communities. So I went truly local in many, many communities across South Africa, from Soweto to Putitachaba to Witsies Hoek to Stutterheim to the Eastern Cape to other towns around it, to Addo where the elephants were, but I went into the Addo town. I went into Port Elizabeth, into Red Location. I went into Khayelitsha. I went into all the communities there. I went up into Darling. I went right up into the Northern Cape to Uppington. So I toured around the country for about 5 years to go truly local. And although every community is different because we're blessed with so many incredible cultures, and that is a strength. I never considered that a weakness. Having so many beautiful cultures in our country is an attribute. And I was going to try to unlock that attribute, and to do that I had to go truly local. And so I spent, yes.
No? So you spent all that time being in an official position of some of our tourism bodies, right? You were part of the South African Tourism, the marketing organization. You were part of many other organizations. So you could really actually speak to the people in power about this development that one can do, which is unique to every community. But did they listen to you?
No, not really. There's always this the diplomacy of allowing you to speak, but then it doesn't mean to say if people listen to you that they'd actually do anything about it. So what happened was I had the unique position then of being the only person at the time, because I'd been elected by and pushed forward by all these communities across South Africa. So I was local, township, local, regional, district, provincial, and then eventually nominated by many communities to the National Tourism Board. So at one point I was sitting across all these tourism structures, and everyone I came to, I was hitting the same guitar string. And people like to listen, but when I then went again, this time truly local, to the tourism industry, I did a search on all the package tours and all the itineraries, and I found that our beautiful country was dissected into 3 or 4 flashpoints, and we were missing completely the point that, yes, it's wonderful to have animals and wonderful to have elephants, but we cannot compete with countries like Botswana and those areas, because they have immense, vast areas full of animals. So that wasn't a unique thing. So I thought, well, there's other things that are unique. So I would add this into itineraries and put these forward with as much persuasive powers as I could. But it didn't work. And then I'll never forget, Vali Muso at that point was the chairperson of the National Tourism Board. So because I was there not representing any product, no airline, no hotel, no tour operators, because there was a vast cross-section of all the tourism stakeholders on the board, a very big board. So for my sins, they made me the marketing chairperson, the executive marketing chairperson of the South African Tourism Transformation Board. At that point, I also went global. And I also then scouted out locally in those offices, how is our country being profiled? How are our people? Where is the growth? I feel we need to grow tourism in non-competitive products and experiences, because visitors, we were just getting a couple of million. We could draw so many more different market segments and spread it across, and not just go for the high-end luxury tour and then the Berg Bush and the beach. So at that point, I tried to include all these things into a more diverse tourism experience. And though listened to with much sympathy, it seemed like the task was just too big.
Yeah.
So when I stepped down from South African Tourism and the Western Cape Tourism Board, I made one resolution that I would form a new organization that would create the next new normal. That was in the year 2000. That it will be a new normal in tourism in South Africa. What a dream I had. Because 20 years later, I've sort of just managed to crack that nut.
But you went back to your community and sort of on the strength of Moses's dream, his Dreamcatcher idea, and lifted that community little by little. I mean, uplifted them little by little. And that was for me the social justice, so that these people, as I know them today, are the people that actually can stand on their own feet. And how did you had projects? What were the projects that you did to actually help these people to realize who they are?
You see, the thing is this, I'd like to link that to the UN Sustainable Development Goals in the millennium year of 2000. When I formed Dreamcatcher South Africa nonprofit, I immediately adopted the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And in that, those pillars of social justice, leave no one behind, accountability, inclusivity, accessibility, all of that comes into play. And looking through all the communities on my Taste of Reality tours around the country for 10 years, it was very clear that there are common denominators, but every community is different.
Yes.
They also have their own unique culture, their lifestyle, their expression, which is emotional and sometimes with significance and science. And you have to respect that and value that and build that out into another product for South Africa to sell. Our people with all the incredible diversity. So therefore, I developed a plethora of different products around the country. Those that were unified were called Homestays with Kamama and Cook Up with Kamama. They were to connect all the incredible cuisine of all the different cultures into a foodie experience. So immediately you have a different product which you're selling out there. And that also to Homestays with Kamama. Because they, once again, you're staying over with cultures and you are learning. And I was putting humanity back into tourism. Because for me, it was very abstract. You know, it's all good and well to tick off all the animals off your list. You can't shake a hand with an elephant or a lion.
Exactly.
To actually get into our country and adhere to what Nelson Mandela asked all of us to do, is let us work together to make it a better life for all our people. He was actually well ahead of the 2000 Sustainable Development Goals, because what he meant was leave no one behind.
Exactly.
So in that regard, in Melkhoutfontein is a very unique community. They evolve from what Professor Mike de Jong, the great anthropologist, called the forgotten people.
Yes.
They actually emulate from cultural roots that were found in the historical finding of the 1991 Blombos Cave, yes, where the Huhu and all the lifestyle was discovered. Then all of a sudden, the fish traps in Still Bay made all the sense. They are over 3,500 years old, long before colonists arrived on our continent. So it meant that there was people with lots of brains working. They had a culture and a cuisine that must have been very rich in omegas. Because as I was researching in that community, I found they took me to where the various areas where they used to roam along the beach. Mm-hmm. And they took me to an area where the shell middens were found.
Yes.
In 1970s, they found shell middens when they were excavating for a house to look over the beautiful ocean. And there was layers, thousands of years old, where you could actually accurately see what people were eating. And it was all omega-3s. And now we're planting omega-3s all the time for brain power. But exactly. They had it years ago.
Exactly. And very well-developed frontal lobes of their brain as a result of that.
Absolutely. So it's a no-brainer how they could work out to build the fish traps.
Yes.
Because they must have studied the sea and the stars and the moon and the spring tide and the neap tide and the all the different tides and the Admiralty Zone and also solstice, to work out which months of the year they could go deep into the ocean to build the traps when the water would wash over them so they could harvest. And then I also found that they would only take what they needed from environment, and they lived in harmony with it. So here was this community in Melkhoutfontein, situated between two waste dump sites, and that had a massive impact on their health and the environment. We went around and we found that there was one, the community themselves pointed out, but there was one area called St. Augustine's grounds where there was an old abandoned church, which was then through no social good anymore. And it was totally dilapidated, and there was mountains and mountains of unused waste. And it was dumped there by people from the surrounding areas.
Into the community.
Onto the St. Augustine's church ground. So that was an illegal dumping ground for waste, from toxic, hazardous waste to medical waste to asbestos to everything had been dumped there. And together with the Acacia Cyclops, the entire area was an absolute disaster zone, like Armageddon. Mm-hmm. There was no amphibians close to the water, the river running close to it. There were no birds coming there excepting seagulls that came to see the shiny bottles and the tops, and they would ingest it, and you would find many seagulls lying dead there. Mm-hmm. And then also there was no reptiles, nothing. There was nothing. So all of these things, when you look at my message today is, when you look at developing a destination, don't look at how you see it now. Do your homework in every community. Get your taste of reality, as I call it, which I've branded now. And then what you do is you find what you can fix out of that. So looking at this ground, looking at all this Acacia Cyclops, and knowing that the culture had been lost to the community of Melkhoutfontein. Yet in DNA tests, they had found that some of the members in the community were directly descended in the DNA to the Gugun of thousands of years ago. So we had culture to reawaken. So we developed Paint Up with Kamon, where this small community, who had no respect for their houses, and felt they wanted the beautiful big houses in Stilbaai, which I said, listen, forget the pie in the sky. Let us work on what we've got here. You've got what nobody in Stilbaai has got. You've got your own beautiful culture and history. Let's splash it against the walls. So the entire community is painting up with Kamama. So visitors come, artists from around the world on the Global Citizens and Art for Humanity project, and they come and paint and design with the community, sharing from thousands of years ago. Some of them prefer the recent history. And that is how we're developing one of the world's largest art galleries.
Exactly. And what a gallery. I mean, those strings of thought, and I mean, there is just so much that you can do. And we've got these pictures that will be on the show, and there you see them. So all of these different houses actually reflect the history as the people see it. But I mean, you've got the key there, absolutely, to get somebody in the community, to introduce you to the community, get the community involved in various ways, and then give to the tourists that unique experience that you can only find in that community. So this I would see as social justice. Yes. And then you spoke about the dump site that was there. It's gone. So let's look at the environmental integrity. What did you do to get the environment to the place where it is now?
Well, that was a project which took us 10 years. Once again, all the elders of the community, and also one important thing, in a community like that, there's an intergenerational dynamic.
Yes.
It's not like in modern society, it's the one is dependent on the other. Because if a butterfly flaps their wings in one street, there's a hurricane in the other. So
I've
I
experienced
had
that.
enormous fun because I was I was I was exposed to all these age groups, and I grew up. I grew up at that moment, and I learned all about how the social structures work and how they are balanced, and bringing in from the youth right to the elders in the community. We made a plan, and it took us 6 years to remove over 200 tons of household waste. Some of the waste could not be removed. I brought in a waste management expert from the UK, where I was fortunate to have training in environmental management and did a lot of volunteer work in the UK to get all that experience. He said, listen, we better close this because this is toxic. It's very close to the water source, which is the dam which actually feeds the community of water. So let us treat this, we close it, and you build over it that nobody can ever go there. So on top of the biggest dump with the most toxic and medical waste, which had been dumped there, we created a unique monument because we took out more than a ton of crockery that people had thrown away their crockery over the years. And so that crockery has become mosaics. And so the youth were taught in art and mosaics how to make mosaics. And then they sell these blocks. People can use it against the walls, as pavers, as decorating in their houses. And the children are making that, and they are paying for their school shoes, which are very important the first year first day of the school to go, and helping toward their school uniforms. What we then did is we actually made teams, and collectively we took out 250 tons of acacia cyclops. Now that was all done with volunteers, because wherever I put in a funding proposal to do this, it was turned down, because are you off your cotton picking mad type of approach, which yes, yeah, I am a bit mad, because I believe that in each of us there should be some madness and resilience to stick to what you believe in, because otherwise you just give up along the way. So instead of becoming a jawbone and talking on boards and tourism structures, I slowly receded into the background, and I turned from a jawbone into a backbone with the communities. So we got under the load, got it done, and we left the land for taking along, obviously, the St. Augustine's Parish, whose grounds it was. And they said, yes, sure, to help and do this because it's an eyesore. We left it for 3 years. After we removed it for 3 years, we left the land for 3 years to try to see what would it regenerate. And nature is an incredible thing. By that time, I had acquired a couple of Green composters, which take all organic waste and food waste, and we made organic plant food from it, from the compost, and we dressed it all over the land. And within 3 years, we had over 350 species back. And along came the birds, and along came the reptiles, and along came the little patopiki and tortoises, and along came two, believe it or not, geometric tortoises. And we knew, and we saw some very, very rare birds, and we knew that the birds and nature had returned. Because the whole concept of Dreamcatcher and the mindset is, it's people in partnership in nature.
Exactly.
Not people
regeneration. Yeah, and that's regeneration. I mean, you regenerated not only the people through social justice, but you also regenerated the whole area through environmental integrity. And I mean, when you get there today, it's beautiful. There's a botanical garden, and it's something that is so special. I've got some of your plants here on my farm that I actually planted. So it's just such a joy for the eye. It's just amazing to see what has come after those 3 years. And wasn't there also a little antelope that came there one day?
Yes, you see, because what happened? The small mammals came back. From rabbits to all sorts of little animals, because you see the whole habitat circle came back. Yes. And then when they sustain each other, that is where life actually will regenerate itself, and you will have birds coming back. And so the children learned environmental stewardship in classes. Every enterprise, you see, and lots of volunteers came then from abroad because I couldn't really infuse many South Africans. Come on, South Africa. I couldn't infuse them to come on. So the kamamas, which were then set up across South Africa, would come for their training once a year, and they would all get stuck in, and they would help. So this fellowship and this network between all the different cultures around our country, working in unison and in harmony, the one referring to the other. And as many said to me, you know, I've learned about the Xhosa. I've never in my life spoken to a Xhosa person because that was not what we did. We were in separate areas of the country. We never traveled. So yes, I made tourists out of all of them with my board. They went on travels. They went around. The Kamamas homestays and the cook-ups visited restaurants, and they became the secret assessors who will never know. They came back and said, you know what, that was good at that restaurant and that's good at the restaurant, but you know what? That's regenerated bacon.
Exactly.
So I said, how do you know that? She said, I have eaten regenerated bacon because I get the leftovers my whole life as a servant in households. So I know what regenerated old bacon tastes like. So it was a great learning curve for me.
Oh,
so we created this botanical garden, which is La Bloemen, and a celebrity from abroad came, and also the Dutch ambassador to South Africa, Marisa Gerhards, came, and they opened it, and it was called La Bloemen, the flowers. And today, La Bloemen Botanical Garden is part of the UN declared biosphere, Goudit's biosphere. Then, with that in hand, visitors started to come more. So the homestays with Kamama and the cook-off with Kamama just grew and grew. An organic vegetable garden was pioneered. So visitors come and they help to pick and they help to eat and they make their food together with it. And in that way, we have learned actually to live off the land far more. And therefore, this part of social justice is to make it accessible for anybody in that community who saw themselves as an enterprise, who are willing to take that risk, and which enterprise always is. And then to have their training in bits. Because remember, if you were a servant and now you're a service, you have a completely different mindset about a tourist because you were always cleaning. One of them said to me, I've always only been cleaning their toilets and their baths and their showers. I have never let them use my own. So that is the level at which we trained. I brought in scores of my family to sleep over and to eat in communities because fortunately I was raised in that way by my incredible parents. My dad could speak Xhosa long before he could speak Afrikaans because he was brought in from the Eastern Cape to the Western Cape. So you see that justice of accessibility, if you want to, inclusivity, equality, and building equity locally was very important, that there's a minimum of leakage, that the money is imploded back into the community.
Yes.
And therefore, today, the community, the children are so used to visitors. We've trained local site guides with your help, and they are doing incredible work. They're sharing their history proudly. So we are reawakening the ancestors. And we know that in that way, there's ownership. So after that whole understanding that it's possible, we started to promote this. And the promotion was an eye-opener. Because wherever we went to put our parcels on the table, we were told that visitors from abroad wouldn't come. Then we were invited, thank goodness for Cheryl Carolus, when she was the CEO of South African Tourism, which I'd left at that point. I pitched it to her. She said, come on, you launch that at Indaba. That cook-up with Kamama Sim sounds amazing. So we launched at Indaba. We ran the restaurant for lunch for people to come that were at Indaba. We also had our tent. And after people met all the different Kamamas, you know, the cook-up with Kamamas, that's like behind me, it's still from those days, That was in 2002. The trade from abroad and the media from abroad would come to the stand to ask to talk to me. They would say, but how do I get this into my package? Because I'm contracted to somebody in South Africa that says I don't even go there. So they don't have confidence to take people to come and eat there because they don't go there themselves. So how do I get onto this bandwagon of telling of new tourism in South Africa? This is the tourism. This is the freedom which Nelson Mandela told us all about.
Exactly.
So it wasn't happening. We were at the Indaba. We got the prize as the best organization at Indaba by Fair Trade. And no bookings came off that. And then I started to get emails directly from the trade abroad telling me, my friend, I'm not contracted, but that one is. And she told me about that. Can I bring the people? Yeah, sure you can. So we created a central booking system, empowered somebody from the communities to actually be the booking officer.
Yeah. Oh, well,
and so that is empowering people to take ownership. And then what happened in the marketing, we went global. Because having had so many contacts abroad, I just flashed out all these beautiful photographs across the world. And to the day that COVID struck, the Dreamcatchers have been completely financially self-sufficient.
There you go. And that brings us to the third and the last pillar of economic efficiency. And I want to just sort of at the end of our chat, which I wish can go on and on, is what you did with waste. I was watching these people make products, sellable products out of waste, like you know, the plastics that lie around and the wood that they can find for free. So these people were so enthused, sitting there learning how to make brooms, how to make all kinds of things. And the pictures will show you, it's absolutely amazing what came from this waste. But what I appreciated so much was the enthusiasm and the dedication of so many people that actually came in and saw the possibility of making a little bit of money, and I suppose quite a bit at the Christmas market after that, but that they found their worth in that I can go and do something. I can pick up waste and make something of it. So that was for me the economic efficiency that came from these years of getting people to see their own worthiness, and which leads them to the wasteland, gracelands leg that you stand on.
Yes, you see, with all the waste that was collected and the training which I had in the UK, I had the gumption to approach the University of Brighton. I said, listen, we've got mountains of waste here. How about I'll give you a presentation of what's out there. And let us turn the abstract, just like we turned the abstract of tourism into humanity-based encounters, which now in the COVID times, it's flagged up as one of the most important things, humanity. And humans need humans. And so also, when you're talking about waste management, let us turn it from the abstract. We must now just not waste. Let us make something. Let's turn it into a resource to reuse. In that way, we will reduce the waste at the curbside. We will reduce the emissions to the landfill sites. We will eventually eliminate the landfilling, which are causing many greenhouse gases. And then that way, we have created new income streams. Because the important thing, which is part of the mindset, is that we don't create 50 tour guides in one community.
Yes,
when there's only work for 5.
Yes.
So you put out all the jobs, because in tourism, there's a plethora of peripheral jobs out there. We are buying all the crafts in South Africa, of which far too many are imported, from plastics which were exported. The curios are imported back. So we broke that mold. And so they came along the University of Brighton. From the youth, right to every enterprise, were trained in waste, how to manage your waste at your tourism enterprise, at your cook-up venue, or at your homestay. The first thing that we did away with is everybody that comes to in the communities where the kamamas are must bring their own soap, their own sanitizer, their own shampoo, and take it away with them. So that's what we did. And then the enterprises, they signed up. People who had always wanted to do something with their hands, they were trained by designers, top of the range designers from the UK at the University of Brighton on waste. And what do you do with different materials to process them? And they today have produced these beautiful, usable items, crafting. It comes from HDPE waste, it comes from PET single-use waste, and it comes from the marine and the community environment. And so they are therefore reducing waste.
Yeah.
They are reducing the impact of waste on climate change, and they are using it to make reusable items. So we're creating the perfect circular economy, which people are wondering how you do that. But we're not doing the circular economy on the medium income level and higher. We are doing it where the need is the greatest, and where it's important to have the materials available at the least cost, which is the waste where people live. The same with the food waste. Also goes into composters and growing your own food. So once more to circular economy. So the community itself are taught about waste and how to live with it and how to work with it and reduce their footprint. And one day we were sitting, so I said, so what should we call the experience when visitors come to Melkhoutfontein? It's all built around your particular circumstances. We didn't see you as you were. I didn't see you as other people might have seen you when I came to the community. I looked at your incredible cultures and your beautiful natures of forgiveness and humanity. And I knew that I could see you in my mind's eye as you should be and could be, not the way you are today. And so that has inspired the Wasteland Graceland, because they said, so what should we call this, Anthea? What should we call this? It was a terrible wasteland. I said, but isn't it a Graceland now? And there they had it. So they all started to ululate and dance. And the name of that community experience is called Wasteland Graceland. And incidentally, it ticks 17 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
I know. It's amazing.
In an integrated program.
Exactly. Integrated and well balanced. So other words for regeneration are renewal, revival, rejuvenation, rebirth, restoration, resurrection, and a lot more. And this is exactly what happened here. This is really a regenerative tourism project that has come for many years before this was even a topic, and it is working, and it has an effect on the people, it has an effect on the environment, it has an effect on the economy of the area. But Anthea, if you give me one word for what this has done for you and the community, what would that be? Difficult one.
It's a difficult one, but I'd like to place this as my favorite thought process. To be able to overcome everything holding people back from developing. To be able to be true to your nature or your promise to change tourism in South Africa, we have to go truly local. We have to try to find what is holding folk back and work together as a team in South Africa. Because this country belongs to everybody, and we have to work together to make it work. The Dreamcatcher experiences are non-competitive. They're complementary to what is South Africa. And knowledge and education is one thing, because that will give you the facts. But the best school of my life was come to know the values in every community. And if you have the knowledge of values, then you can reach out to other people and help them to find those values within themselves. So I believe that, and incidentally, at that point, I also knew that the tourism industry has a long way to go. So we've developed extensive experience now in destination development. Expertise I never thought I would ever have. We have incredibly empowered people, and we have to have the people to make it work. And this is a adage that Disney said. He said, we can build the most incredible structures and strategies, but we still may need the people to make it work. And in the COVID times in which we are finding ourselves now, Joleen, we need the people and their values to make anything sustainable work.
Exactly. But that's exactly what this remarkable woman has done. And Melkhoutfontein near Mossel Bay, in the area of Mossel Bay near Stilbaai. And this is something that is so worth just going to visit and experience. Thank you, Anthea, for being here, and thank you for what you did for us. Thank you. And now I hope many people will know.
I'm deeply grateful. Deeply grateful.